नमो बुद्धाय नमो बुद्धाय नमो बुद्धाय नमो.
So nevertheless, now is the time for some questions. Mostly from the kids, I do believe. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Bhante, for that beautiful meditation guided session. We have a few questions, and we have found that few volunteer students to ask the questions. So the first person, can you get a mic across to that person? Yeah.
Venerable Ajahn, how can you help or comfort someone who is undergoing depression?
That's very easy. Someone who has depression, remind them of all the benefits of depression. For example, they don't have to go to school when they're depressed, have a few days off. And also, one of my students, he was a grown man, I said, "What happened to you this morning? You're under depression." And he said, "Well, I felt like having ice cream for breakfast." You can't have ice cream for breakfast. I know I can't, but when you're depressed, you can. So I asked my wife not just for one bowl of ice cream, for 2 bowls of ice cream. And they said, "Did you enjoy it?" "Oh, yes. I really have the opportunity to have ice cream for breakfast when my mum's around, when my mother's around." So try and find some benefits from meditation. It's not from meditation, sorry, from benefits from depression. And when you find the benefits from depression, you find that you don't want to let go of it. You start enjoying depression, and that means the depression disappears. But tell your friend, if the depression does disappear, then please don't tell your doctor. Get an extra few days just for yourself. Depression does come and go. One of the causes of depression, I'm sure you've heard this, one of my favorite stories, 2 bad bricks in the wall. Bodhinyana Monastery, where I live, when I first went there, and the first night I slept under a tree. There was no places else to sleep, no buildings. But then, little by little, we built. And one of the first buildings we built was the ablution block so we can have legal showers and toilets. And I did the brickwork there. Once I finished building a brick wall, I was a theoretical physicist and a monk, but still did lots and lots of building work. As you read in the Vinaya, in the time of the Buddha, the monks all used to do some work, physical work. And so, after I built that wall, I looked at it and it looked terrible. 2 bricks were crooked. I don't know how I missed them. And I asked the other monk with me, "Can I please order some dynamite? I want to blow up that wall." I was embarrassed by it. It's my wall and I made a mess of it. And they said, "No, you can't. You can't afford it." So I said, "Well, can I get a bulldozer and push it over?" No. I was stuck with that wall. For 3 months, I suffered. I dreamt of it. When any visitor would come and visit, I'd make sure that I was their guide so I can take them somewhere else that didn't see my terrible brick wall. Then one day this guy came and said, "That's a nice wall." And I thought he was crazy. "Have you left your spectacles in the car? Are you blind?" And he said, "No, my eyesight's good. Can't you see those 2 crooked bricks?" "Yes." Then he said he could also see the 998 perfect bricks. I realized I was the one who was blind. When I made a mistake, my eyes would just focus on my mistakes, and I couldn't see what was above, below, to the left and right of those 2 crooked bricks. Once he told me that, I realized I didn't need to destroy that wall. And in fact, that was about 40 years ago, that experience, and that wall is still there to this day. When you get depressed, you're focusing on two crooked bricks in your life. And you're not realizing the brick which is above, below, left or right, which are much more many, so more of them, and also that they are beautiful bricks. So teach a person who's depressed all the wonderful things they've done, all the wonderful things which is going to happen to them, all the wonderful bowls of ice cream they can enjoy any time of the day or night. And after a while, people aren't afraid of depression, and it disappears. Pretty easy. We always talk about good things, kind things, beautiful things. And after a while, bye-bye depression. It's not that hard. Is that okay? Did you enjoy that answer? Or did that make you more depressed? Okay. Have you got another question?
Venerable Ajahn, my question is how 90% of youth are addicted to social media and all these are algorithms without our knowledge. My question is how we can get out of this.
I couldn't really hear that clearly.
99% of youth are addicted to the social media platforms. My question is how we can get rid of them.
Oh, the addiction to electronic media. Yeah, okay. And sometimes some of that addiction to electronic media is very bad. In other words, it's pornography or violence. And some of that we get depressed at. After a while, realize there's much more to life than just these little excitements. So one thing which I would advise, if it's a young person addicted to these things, please form a group of other kids of your age, in the same sort of area of schooling, and talk to each other about it. And you'll learn to help one another to find other ways of enjoying life. Sometimes if you get involved in those pornography or in those other forms of so-called entertainment or excitement, how do you feel about yourself afterwards? You feel like you're in a prison, that you've trapped yourself in jail. Your freedom has been taken away. And you're always worried and concerned about getting caught. And unfortunately, I've known a couple of people, not those 40 years, it's only two of the Buddhists who come to my temple, who got involved in pornography and watching, and they didn't realize what they were doing until they were caught. Both of them went to jail. Would you like to go to jail? It's not just being ashamed of going to jail. It's also just, it takes away so many opportunities in your life. It's hard to get a job. It's hard to get a partner in life. How do you feel about yourself? These are crimes which have got punishments to them. The punishments aren't physical punishments in the sense of being beaten or anything. It's a sense of being ashamed and being set apart from your friends and others. It's not really worthwhile doing. It's one of the reasons why is two of the people who I taught in jail, taught meditation, they were in there for drug dealing. They were addicted to that. And one of the best therapies for them was one of the, and I praise her so much for this, one of the principals in a nearby primary school invited two of those prisoners who had been sentenced to quite a few years in jail for drug dealing to come and talk to their kids in primary school on what happens if you start dealing in those drugs. Not the punishment by being in jail, but the shame and the difficulties you have in your life afterwards. If you've been in jail, is it easy to get a job when you leave? Can you keep your family or your loved ones close to you? You get rejected. What this prisoner did, when I went to teach meditation one evening at his jail, he took me straight away to the school rooms for the prisoners, trying to increase their education. And he pointed to the board and started crying his eyes out. He was, a tough guy, but the amount of tears which came out of his eyes was huge. He said after going to that school to teach the kids, all those kids in the afternoon sent him cards. Thank you so much for coming to our school. Your presentation was really meant a lot to us. It was real. It was somebody who'd been there and done it and suffered because of it. And we will never take drugs, they said. Now we've heard what it really does to you. There's no way we'll ever do that. Thank you so much. Please come and visit us when you get out of jail. And when he was showing me all these cards which his children had made out for him and sent to him, he couldn't help but just weeping. It gave him some way of paying off his debts to society and giving him meaning, so he never needed to do that ever again. He never did. I met him a few years later. I was at Perth Airport, actually surprisingly, not going anywhere myself, but meeting another monk who was visiting. And I was sitting on the chair and somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and it was him. And he's wearing a nice suit. He said, oh, no way I can ever do drug dealing ever again. But he's being successful, and he did even tell me, Ajahn Brahm, I'm still meditating every day. On his promise. I'm sure he was. That's actually how you deal with addictions. You do something good for others. You feel good in yourself. So you never need to have those addictions ever again. All addictions is a sign of lack of self-esteem. Okay, I can see my... you're coming to take me away? Okay. I hope that answered a little bit of your question. It's a big question, and it's not that hard to overcome. In many places, in many countries, like even in Hong Kong, in the Chinese university in Hong Kong, every year I go there, they ask me to please can you talk about addictions and suicides, because they had a high suicide rate in that university. And for some reason or whatever, the talks which I give are so popular, the suicide rate plummets. The kids realize how to be kind to themselves, how to have meaning and hope, and they never want to commit suicide ever again. Actually, that's a wrong thing to say, isn't it? You only commit suicide once in a life. But they never even want to get even close to that. Never even try. Don't need to. So be kind to your friends, to your children. Really kind. And they don't need to even think about suicide and spoil the lives of their parents. Thank you for listening. Okay? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That gives you more energy at the end of a talk. And so that makes you feel better. Why not? Okay, thanks for listening.